Welcome to this edition of Head to Head. I'm your host, Cam McKinney, and this is episode number 372 of the podcast. And on this episode, I'm talking about the Washington Nationals letting go of general manager Mike Rizzo and manager Dave Martinez. A lot of times when baseball teams make a change, it's either the manager or the general manager who gets let go. Rarely are both fired at the exact same time, and that is what has happened in Washington. The Nationals have moved on from Mike Rizzo, who had been their general manager since 2009, and Dave Martinez, the manager since 2019. I want to say this off top. The writing was on the wall for Martinez after I saw these comments he made to Spencer Nussbaum of the Washington Post. Quote, "It's never on coaching. It's never on coaching. Coaches work their bleep off every single day. We're not going to finger point here and say it's on the coaches. It's never on the coaches. They work hard." End quote. That sounded like a guy who knew he was near the end of his tenure with the team and was feeling all the blame coming his way. I mean, how would you feel if you were a player on the team and the manager said this, quote, "Sometimes you got to put the onus on the players. They got to go out there and they got to play the game and play the game the right way. We can't hit for them. We can't catch the balls for them. We can't pitch for them. We can't throw strikes for them. They got to do that." Again, that was all from a Q&A with Washington Post reporter Spencer Nussbaum. So yeah, no one is that surprised about the firing of Dave Martinez. More are baffled by the ousting of Mike Rizzo, who was responsible for bringing in the likes of Bryce Harper, Steven Strasburg, Juan Soto, and Trey Turner, and is once again hitting on some young players, infielder CJ Abrams and outfielder James Wood, who is an all-star this season and has already driven in 69 runs. But I get it. On paper, the Nationals have talent. I mean, starting pitcher Mackenzie Gore is a very good pitcher, but the team has a record of 38-54, and saying we should be better, it's hard to argue with that logic. The Marlins have a better record than the Nationals, and that's unacceptable. I don't think the Washington Nationals as an organization should have come into this season with playoff expectations, but they should have been a team that was looking to go at least 500, like be a step better than what they've been before, because they have that talent and it should be coming together. They should be getting better as the season goes on, and clearly they thought if they kept these two guys, that would not be the case. I don't want to give these two excuses for why the Nationals are a bad baseball team now, but since winning the World Series in 2019, some things have been out of their control. The health issues that derailed the career of Steven Strasburg are atop that list. I mean, that was a guy who was going to take that next step to being a generational pitcher of a staff. Like, I really do believe that if he had stayed healthy, we would be talking about a Hall of Fame pitcher. That 2019 postseason, he won the World Series MVP. I thought he was going to be a guy who won multiple Cy Youngs. Like, it just felt like he was starting to get his career fully going. He had always shown the talent and promise, but things were coming together, and then he had more health issues that ultimately ended his career far too soon. The other thing that happened to the Washington Nationals is that they lost out on high-priced talent. I mean, Bryce Harper walked out that door, and they were able to survive it because they also had Juan Soto waiting in the wings. The problem is, then Juan Soto wanted to be paid like one of the best players in baseball and rejected a reported $440 million from the Nationals, so they traded him to the San Diego Padres. The Nationals have spent a lot of money on players before. Jason Worth was an historic contract given out by the franchise. They also signed Max Scherzer, but they are not a big market team spending that kind of money on one singular player. Losing out on Bryce Harper was bad, but I think losing out on Juan Soto was even worse. So all of that stuff is in the past. Let's talk about the here and now. In the case of Mike Rizzo, it's not like he had a big offseason. He made moves that made sense. Nathaniel Lowe and Josh Bell. But that doesn't excite a fan base. That's what's perplexing about these firings, because usually blame either goes to a roster construction or play on the field. Possibly this is just a case of a franchise that needs to head in a different direction in both instances. It's been 5 seasons of bad baseball in a row. In the case of both Mike Rizzo and Dave Martinez, they were given ample opportunity to turn things around. This had been going on for a long time. I look at the Washington Nationals and view it as a desirable destination for a manager or general manager because it is a team that has a lot of opportunities ahead. I mean, you have a young star in James Wood who feels like he could be a potential MVP candidate in the years to come. I also really do believe in CJ Abrams. I think he's going to develop to be one of the best infielders in baseball in the coming years. You get to build around that talent, and how you do so is add veteran talent to that roster. I brought up Mackenzie Gore, and he is a very good pitcher, but he feels like at best to be a number 2 pitcher on a really good pitching staff, and that's where the Nationals need to develop. They need to go out and get a true ace. I'm talking about a top-of-the-line number 1 pitcher, because that's ultimately what led them to winning the World Series in 2019. They had Steven Strasburg. They had Max Scherzer. So whoever takes control of the roster needs to overhaul the entire starting pitching staff other than Mackenzie Gore. Again, that's a guy who I believe should be the number 2 on a really good pitching staff. And if I had a great pitching staff, he would be the number 3 starter. And if I were the team, the type of manager I would be looking for is a guy who's been there before. This should not be somebody's rookie job. Like, this needs to be an experienced guy who can help this team get to a 500 or better record. A guy I would look into is former Orioles manager Brandon Hyde, who was fired earlier this year. He's a guy who's been through a rebuild. He knows what to do with young players. A lot of those young guys on the Orioles, Gunnar Henderson, took the next step and helped the Orioles become a playoff team. I do believe a fair assessment of the situation in Washington has been that over the last 5 years, they have not been spending money the way that they were before, and that's the reason why they're no longer a viable franchise. And I understand that because they haven't spent the money. Like I said before, they were spending on the Jason Wirths, the Max Scherzers. They were doing anything and everything to improve the roster. Now all they're doing is bringing in young talent, and that's just not enough. So the big question becomes, was Mike Rizzo just not allowed to spend the kind of money he was spending before when they won the World Series? Like, why would the organization all of a sudden say we can no longer spend that money? I mean, they did offer Juan Soto $440 million. I haven't brought this up, but not enough has been made about them losing Trey Turner. I mean, trading Trey Turner to the LA Dodgers was when I was like, wow, something really is up here, because that's the perfect kind of guy who should have been a member of the Washington Nationals for at least a decade. I mean, he was a guy who can steal bases. He's a solid hitter. He's the type of guy you should be willing to spend on. You could say that they were right on Bryce Harper because they won a World Series after he left. You can definitely say in retrospect they were right on Anthony Rendon. He's turned into one of the worst contracts in all of baseball, but they were wrong about Trey Turner. Think about that. In back-to-back years, they traded away Trey Turner and Juan Soto. How can we be surprised that things didn't end well for them? Those are two of the best players at their positions and great postseason performers as well. I have to imagine that it drives fans of the Washington Nationals absolutely insane that now both of them are playing in the same division. Trey Turner for the Philadelphia Phillies and Juan Soto Soto for the New York Mets. Not to mention Bryce Harper is with the Phillies also. It feels like every time with a young and upcoming team, we are sold on this idea that this team is the new dynasty, that they're going to put it together and they're going to be really good for a long time. And for a minute there, we all had belief that that team was going to be the Washington Nationals. They had Steven Strasburg. They had Juan Soto. They had Trey Turner. I mean, after winning the 2019 World Series, we thought that they could win multiple in a row even. And the truth is, in most cases, that just doesn't end up being the reality. Like, these teams don't become dynasties. They just become a great team for a moment in time. I truly believe Mike Rizzo was very good at his job and think Dave Martinez was an okay manager, but they just didn't recover from the fact that they were no longer that team. And I understand that. I mean, they went from being a World Series winner to one of the worst teams in baseball instantly. It wasn't a slow process. It was the very next year they were no longer a contending team, and that's a tough thing to deal with because it's human nature to believe you'll find it again. And the sad thing is, they never found it. They never even came close. They've never been close to making the playoffs since winning the World Series in 2019. Here's a scary stat for you. Since winning it all in 2019, only one team has a worse regular season record than the Nationals, and that's the Colorado Rockies. Think about how miserable the Colorado Rockies have been lately. That's almost as bad as how the Nationals have been. And the real only reason people are surprised is because these two people, Mike Rizzo and Dave Martinez, won a World Series title with the organization. And that's also the reason that they got a lot of leeway. That's why we've kind of ignored the fact they've been the second worst team in baseball over the last 5 years, because they won that title. So you think, yeah, these two together, they're going to find it. They're going to put together a good team, and Dave Martinez is going to manage that team to victory. But that was never going to happen, and it was starting to feel like it was never going to happen again, because here I've given you good players, I've given you young, talented players, and we're still not winning more games than the Marlins, right? That's the thing. It's okay to be worse than the New York Mets right now. It's okay to be worse than the Atlanta Braves or the Philadelphia Phillies. Those are good teams. Those are teams who consistently win baseball games. But losing more games than the Marlins is going to get you fired, and that's what really happened here. It's not that big of a mystery. I'm kind of on board with them moving on from both of them. Like, I don't understand this idea of keeping one over the other. Mike Rizzo has not done a good job over the last 5 years, and neither has Dave Martinez. Yes, I give Rizzo a ton of credit for getting the Nationals C.J. Abrams and James Wood, but the pitching staff is not very good, and that's on him. And based on the comments from earlier, I just don't think that Dave Martinez was handling being a bad baseball team very well. Like, clearly that was a guy who just didn't know how to manage a team that was basically part of a rebuild. It felt like he was in denial of what happens with teams during a rebuild. Like, there's going to be bad times, and you're just going to have to deal with that, and I really do feel like he had a tough time dealing with that. And looking back, I do fully understand why that was the case. I mean, Dave Martinez walked into the perfect situation, a team that was a very good playoff team. Dusty Baker was the manager before. I mean, he was walking into a team with a lot of talent, and now he's in a rebuilding situation, which not every baseball manager is built for. You can wonder about the timing all you want. I believe that when it comes to a young team, you want to end the season on a high note. Now, the Nationals aren't going to turn it around. They're not going to play above 500 baseball, but just play better than what you were playing before, and you've made the right move. We all understand that these firings weren't about saving this season. It's about saving the long-term viability of the franchise that has been in wreckage the last 5 seasons. What they need to do is continue to develop their young talent and make themselves a place that free agents want to go. I honestly believe the Nats are not that far away from being a good team once again. Because of that young talent, I really do believe in James Wood, and I really do believe in CJ Abrams. The pitching staff is where things need to begin. That's how the Chicago Cubs became a World Series winning team in 2016. They developed good young positional players in Chris Bryant, Javier Baez, and Kyle Schwarber, and surrounded them with a veteran pitching staff that included John Lester and John Lackey. That is the fastest way to turn your team around, is to have those young position players paired with a veteran pitching staff. Another example is the Houston Astros. They developed Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman and then brought in Justin Verlander. That's the type of move the Washington Nationals need to make. Find your version of Justin Verlander, and it will be a quick turnaround, and you'll be contenders in the crowded NL East division once again. I feel good about where the Washington Nationals are headed because this is a sign of self-awareness. Things needed to change for this organization. Yes, like I said before, some things that have gone bad have been out of their control. Steven Strasburg's injuries, Juan Soto rejecting a lot of money, but they also, on the other hand, have made a lot of bad baseball decisions as well. I believe the trading of Trey Turner was an awful baseball decision. I mean, you should have kept that guy, and you should have paid that guy whatever he wanted to remain on the roster. I mean, you could say that's their biggest problem of all. I mean, they couldn't pay for Bryce Harper, they couldn't pay for Juan Soto, and they couldn't pay for Trey Turner. Eventually, if you're going to be thought of as one of the best teams in baseball, you're going to have to pay for the high-priced talent. I mean, at some point, James Wood is going to demand a ton of money. Are they going to be willing to give him said money? Because if not, you're never going to be viewed as one of the premier teams in the game. You're not going to be able to compete with the Dodgers of the world or the Yankees, which is why they need to go back in time and make a move like they did with Jason Worth. I mean, that move came out of nowhere. They took him from the Philadelphia Phillies, gave him a giant contract, and that changed our perception of what they were as a franchise. We began to take them seriously. It's that simple. That's what they need to do this offseason. Spend legit money. The worst thing that has happened to the franchise over the last 5 years is they have become completely irrelevant. I'm sure there are many baseball fans who have not thought of the Washington Nationals over the last 5 years and were only reminded they existed this week because of the firings of Mike Rizzo and Dave Martinez. That is a bad place to be as a baseball team, where we don't even have to talk about you because we don't take you seriously as a baseball team. Over the last 5 years, they've been uninteresting because they haven't put anything together that I would call a good run of baseball. This year, I've been keeping tabs on them a bit more because, again, I like that young talent. I like watching every James Wood at bat. I like watching CJ Abrams. I believe in those two young players, but I want to see them play for a better baseball team. And I, for the moment, have faith that that's going to become the Washington Nationals. I think if they hire the right people, they can have a way better season next year. And that doesn't mean they're going to become a World Series contending team. It doesn't even mean they're going to make the postseason. It just means get to a place where you're playing meaningful games into September. Be a 500 baseball team. Be a team that playoff teams don't want to play in September. Don't be the team that's lost 90 plus games each of the last 4 seasons and could possibly do so again for the 5th straight year. Be something different. The Washington Nationals have made an important move. They have admitted to themselves that there was a problem. Now they need to fix those problems. I've seen the rise and fall of the Washington Nationals, and I'm definitely ready for there to be another upswing. And they are definitely a team I will be keeping a close eye on this upcoming offseason. I want to see them make major moves. This is a closing of an era for the Nationals. I mean, Mike Rizzo and Dave Martinez were the last remnants of that 2019 World Series winning Nationals team. A team that won because of its elite pitching, and that's what the Nationals need to get back to. Thanks for listening to this edition of Head to Head. I'm Cam McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Monday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so please rate, review, and subscribe.